I think Metro CTA clearly has a large asset base that they need to repair and improve upon, and John's identified some of that. In our case, we really have a two-edged sword. We have a significant infrastructure that, quote, I believe, does a very good job of bringing people from the suburbs to the city. What we don't do a good job on is bringing people from the suburbs and the city to suburban jobs, which, as everyone knows in this room, there's more jobs and people in the suburbs than the city of Chicago. To do that, there has to be a significant improvement to our existing lines, as well as building some new lines. For example, the Star Line is, if we're able to get the funding, both locally and federally, will be the first inner suburban commuter rail line in the United States. So it will carry us on the operating side. The problem is that if we don't get a capital resource, this program that was approved in Springfield and provides operating revenue, slowly but surely that revenue is going to be needed to do some replenishment on the capital side. And we coined a term many years ago: the more you capitalize, the less you subsidize. Well, if we don't get a capital source, there won't be enough of operating dollars to cover the losses, and we'll be reducing services, or there'll be a diminution of services.
And the federal government has put Illinois on notice that if we do not come up with a state capital program by early next year, money that's been earmarked for Illinois, not just transit, but roads and schools and other infrastructure, this money that's been set aside for Illinois will be lost and will go to other states that have already stepped up with a capital program.
Well, Kevin, from the environmental side of things, and we'll talk about your project in a little bit, but from the environmental side of things, the types of projects that Phil is talking about and that John has referenced seem like they'd be important to your organization, and yet we're dealing with an environment in Springfield where being put on notice by the federal government doesn't really seem to mean all that much. It's kind of like getting progress reports for some of our kids. What do you think?
I agree with everything. Is this on?
Yes, you're on.
Sorry. I agree with everything.
We're live.
We are. Good morning. I agree with everything that's been said so far this morning. We've solved the operating problem temporarily. There's a huge capital need out there. The real question is sort of what comes out of a capital program, because assuming something does come out of Springfield, it's going to be a sausage mix of some projects that we think are really important, like intercity passenger rail, capital projects for Metro, but it's also going to include some highway projects that we believe may be wasteful, make the problem worse instead of better. So it's a real question, what can we shape to come out the other end that does a good job of moving people, which needs to happen, in a way that impacts the environment the least.
Jim Tobin, you're chomping at the bit. We're hearing about the sausage factory that is Springfield, and it can be pretty ugly watching that.
Yeah, and as usual, there are 3 tax raisers here and 1 taxpayer representative. This is what they do to me on Channel 11 all the time. And but it's a lot of fun. Just think how boring it would be without me here. I always tell people that after they say, hey, you did a good job or a bad job on Channel 11. Yeah, but it would have been boring without me here. So
that's why we have you here, Jim.
Thank you very much, and I hope I am invited back again next year to talk about the next boondoggle. This $500 million tax increase Springfield just passed won't reduce gridlock. It won't expand the system. It's basically going to line the pockets of the employees of RTA, CTA, and PACE. For example, a CTA employee retiring now at 55 years of age after 25 years on the job will get, if he retires at $80,000, he'll get over $1 million in pension benefits the next 20 years, between 53 and 73. Over $1 million in pension benefits. The pension benefit program in this state, not just for CTA, but for government employees in general, is outrageous. If Springfield wanted to do something about the pension problem, they would cap the pensions for all government employees, especially CTA, at $25,000 a year, and mandate that any new hires hired by the CTA or RTA have 401ks, just like the rest of us in the private sector, almost all the rest of us in the private sector. And by the way, Those of you in the private sector, it looks like there are a lot of you here for a change. That's good to see. How many of you, could I see, be able to retire at 53 or 55 and get over $1 million in pension benefits the next 20 years? Can I see a... I mean, I don't even have a pension, but so there's no one raising his hand. Oh, someone over there maybe.
The cameraman is.
Yeah. But this is common in government. By the way, school teachers retire after 30 years on the 34 years on the job. If they retire at $100,000, which most high school teachers do this day after 34 years, they get over $2 million in pension benefits over the 20-year period from 53 to 73 years of age. And that's where all this unfunded liability crap is coming from. It's these $1 million and multi-million-dollar pension benefits for these government employees, and this is unheard of in the private sector. So the solution is cap the pension benefits for government employees at $25,000 and mandate all new government hires, get 401ks like most of us in the private sector.
There has been some largesse in the transit unions, especially at CTA, but this new legislation does address that for the first time. It saves the CTA in pension costs something like $11 million a month, well over $100 million a year. For the first time, it requires CTA employees to contribute towards their pensions, and more importantly, perhaps, it requires CTA retirees and their families for the first time to contribute to their health care. Up till now, it's been free. So this legislation does put performance standards out there in terms of reform. That's a good thing. And I think we got to remember, though, that this does deliver, I think, a lot in terms of stability, in terms of operations, and it's a tax increase of 0.25%. It's a penny for every $4 in sales in products bought. So it's not a boondoggle, as Mr. Topin referenced. It's really long overdue. And the media and other responsible watchdog groups will watch the RTA system, make sure that the money is spent appropriately, that contracts are not doled out to pails, and but this is necessary.
Yeah, the nice thing about this $500 million tax increase is it brought out the hidden skeletons at CTA: falsified inspections of blue line tracks, faulty rails installed by mafia-linked contractors in 1980. That's on that red line going up to O'Hare. They're already falling apart.
The blue line goes to O'Hare.
Blue line, the blue, red, whatever. I used to work the West Line when I was with the CTA years back. Hopeless cost overruns on state in Washington's Big Dig. They're putting in an underground station, a state in Washington. It's going to cost a couple $100 million for a half a block of track. Factor that for 1 mile. That's about $1 billion a mile for track. Well, there's a new station going down there too. But as far as the reform is concerned, that's hogwash. They retire. The current employees get the benefit program I was telling you about already for pensions. The new hires get the same program starting at 64 years of age. They still get the $1 million pension benefit over the next 20 years. So that's not a reform at all. They'll be back to us again in another 5 years with another $500 million tax increase. And by the way, I certainly hope that those of you who agree with what I say get a copy of my tax survey. I'm not going to mention which state senators and state representatives from this area voted for this boondoggle, but it's here in our CTA tax survey, and I have copies you can get from me afterwards. It's also online on our website.